You have heard several times the project name already, NEMO. This is for new methods for turbulence measurements and models in offshore wind. And the purpose of my presentation is to give you a little bit more context about this, what we're planning to do, what we have already done, and yeah, basically really with a focus on the perspectives. But I'm bringing a few results and also I think some nice results that fit very well to what Julian just presented. Now I see. So this is the outline. As I said, the project overview is the first part. We are talking about, or I'm talking about, the targeted research results. Just to give you the full picture of what we're planning to do, preliminary results. I have a few slides about the intensive measurement campaign we are actually just starting today. And last slide on the summary and the outlook for the upcoming weeks and months. So the title we have mentioned a few times now, and you also see it works with the abbreviation. So we get NEMO if you reduce all this word to an acronym. You have also heard that it's actually two projects, two twin sibling projects with their own matching funds. So one is the ICAN-NEMO project. ICAN is an abbreviation for an internal funding program we have within Fraunhofer, which aims at, you can see it here, but I should maybe use a pointer. It's an abbreviation for international cooperation and networking. And one of the objectives of this program is really to find a partner for a relevant topic. And we have found our partner for this topic in France Energy Marine. And that's why we were super happy to not just get the partners on board, but also found that we found a way to get the matching funds with the DRACCAR-NEMO project that was already introduced by Neil and Maxime as well. So we are doing this together. For our project, we have a project period of 3 months, and we started 1st of September 23. The French project is a little bit shorter, but in the end, we have really in the hot phase of the project, particularly in the second phase, we aim at a very intense collaboration, I would say. And when you look at the numbers, you will also see that this was also mentioned before already. We just had our midterm meeting at the halftime of the project last week in Paris. And that's simply because we're at the half period of the project now. I was asked before, what is NEMO actually? What did you have in mind? And a lot of people always have the picture in mind. It was actually not the fish. It was the Jules Verne link with Captain Nemo, but I think it works in both cases. So for the project overview, we have, of course, websites because it's two projects. I show you the links here, both of the Fraunhofer website, where we present a little bit of context of the project, but there's also a separate web page for DRACCAR-NEMO. And this is also not just because we were not able to align it completely, but also because we have these different funding frameworks. We also have slightly different partners. So in our project, for example, we are the only funded partners. We have an active advisory board with representatives mainly from wind farm developers and operators who support us finding the right strategy in the project. And as you heard before or have seen on the slide for DRACCAR-NEMO, they are some industry partners, and I guess some of them are also represented here, involved more deeply. Just as a side information, but we try to really align this and work in this context. So work as partners, but also work with the industry and the industry input and feedback very closely in this project. This is just to show you the project team and also basically as a contributor to the project from both sides, from IWES and France Energy Marine, and some of the industry partners. Just a picture. You may have seen this on LinkedIn as well. That was from the midterm meeting last week. Coming to the contents, the research goals you can see here. So it's all about turbulence, but really turbulence, not just from measurements, but also from modeling. You can also see it in the work package structure. We have these two central work packages, both on measurements and modeling separately first, but it is really the main goal of the project to bring this together and really learn how we can get turbulence data and particular turbulence intensity parameters in the best way so that we can input this to the different applications we have in the particularly offshore wind business. So we are working on the measurement side, basically on reconstruction algorithms for floating LiDAR measurements. You have heard a little bit from the work Maxime is doing on the France Energy Marine side, really on the LiDAR side. But we also have the floating part. We already heard from Julian how tricky this is and what it needs, but I will show you some results later from the preliminary work we have been doing. And then we are also working with dual Doppler scanning LiDAR. And it's not just about applying these different tools, these measurement technologies and working with the data. It's also, again, to learn about how we can combine it and to give recommendations in the end. What is actually the right technology for delivering turbulence input to the wind energy applications? Similarly, on the modeling side, you have listened to the presentations from Tanguy about the LES efforts, but you have also heard about the limitations of that in cost and effort. So we are also looking at something that is called gray zone resolution or gray zone modeling, which is a WRF solution pushed to the scale so that we hopefully can cover TI. And in the end, not just on the measurement, but also on the modeling side, and then in the end altogether, it's about having these different tools and having also the recommendations how to use them in a real project and with the resources that are available. More formally, we have something called targeted research results, and these are aligned to the work packages. So you see it is about recommendations for both the measurement and the modeling part. Floating and dual Doppler scanning LiDAR is number 2. Then we have the gray zone modeling and the calibration using the LES to get the optimal understanding of the accuracy we can reach. And then we have 2 further work packages and targeted results that are really related to the output parameters. So in work package 2, which is the first technical work package, we discussed a lot about what are actually the parameters we're interested in. We always say turbulence, and most of the time we are thinking of turbulence intensity, which is a simple parameter. Are there other parameters, and how is this related to something like gusts and extreme winds? How can we get this from the data? Can it be derived directly, and do we have a clear definition? Or, and this is what work package 5 will be about, do we need additional methodologies, algorithms, and tools to actually convert the data we produce with the measurements and or the modeling, the simulations into parameters, for example, using machine learning or other techniques that are more and more used in our industry. And with this, well, this is just the concept. This is basically what we saw to get the funding. I come to some more specific results we can already share, and this is now mainly from the IWES side, because you already saw some of the outcomes both from Maxime and Tanguy. So I will give you one idea about what we do in terms of mesoscale model simulations, the gray zone WRF application I mentioned already, and then a little bit more about the floating LiDAR measurements, because we have just submitted a paper, I can say. This is one of the mesoscale results, and it's a work by my colleague Sandra Schwegmann and will be presented at WES 2025. So it's this picture is also taken from the abstract, and what you see here is a mesoscale simulation, which we used to get a TI output. So it's TI derived from the mesoscale simulations with specific parameterizations. Of course, in the full presentation, you will get all the details about it, and it is shown over a period of 1 year. So you see on the horizontal axis the annual variations or seasonal variations, and then you see basically different results, and the different differences or the variations in these results are according to what this TI parameter was calculated. It's all compared to a measurement. In this case, this is from the Venus 3 MetMast in the German North Sea. So we got MetMast measurement and derived the TI value from this. This is a blue curve. And then we took the same simulated data, so it's all the same mesoscale data set, only the TI values were derived according to different definitions. And you see actually the different definitions and there are underlying equations to this in the legend. I don't give you all the details, all the equations here, but it's basically different ways how you can derive this, and we found these different options, basically different equations in the literature. And you see, even though you have the same simulation, so the same model physics applied here, you still have a job to do in order to say actually how do I derive this now, what kind of convention do I apply, and see actually that there are some ways of calculating this parameter that are a bit closer to the measurement, maybe still physically something completely different, but this is also apart from knowing how to do the modeling right and knowing how to do the measurements right, we also have to talk about metrics we apply and evaluate. Now, the second part about the measurements. So now we see a floating LiDAR. After Julian's presentations, we all know what this is. So we basically have a buoy, we put a LiDAR. All the LiDARs we're normally working with on a platform and have by this a lot of motion impact. So what you see here is another floating LiDAR, not the one we have seen in Julian's presentation, but the one we have developed at Fraunhofer IWES. So we basically have a pretty standard buoy moving in all 6 degrees of freedom. And what we also did, so the lower one, you know, that's the wind cube measurement geometry, but we have the same system also with a continuous wave LiDAR vertical profiler from another manufacturer, and we have tested both of them and studied what is actually the impact of this on turbulence intensity measurements and what can we do about it. And this is a publication I mentioned before. It was just submitted by my colleague and PhD student Warren Watson to Modernity Science, and it's hopefully available as a preprint within the next few days. So it's just in the process of being prepared. And you see already here when I have my LiDAR geometry, so this is what is relevant for the measurements, and add motion to this, we have all kinds of effects. So basically the measurement geometry is spread over the entire space. And of course, this has an effect on the measurements. The results we can share, or we're sharing this paper, is from a campaign again at Venus 3 in the German North Sea, where we had the opportunity to basically compare the floating LiDAR measurements to a MetMast, but also to a fixed LiDAR. So you see it here. We have the MetMast platform. On the platform, there was a continuous wave LiDAR profiler, and we could basically compare everything with each other. You also see on the right side, we have quite representative conditions. We are far offshore, good wind speeds. From the main wind direction, you can see here, but also the sea conditions where it was not about heavy storms, but definitely good offshore conditions for this test period. And then we are going into these comparisons, and it's very similar to what you've seen before in this webinar. We always do these regression plots. You can apply different regression lines to that, different calculations to get parameters out of this. I'm just showing you the lines. I don't give you the numbers because this is what you can look up in the paper. But what you do see is when comparing TI, and this is without any motion, when comparing TI from a LiDAR to a MetMast, we already have some kind of spread. So this is our starting point in our experiment, this kind of spread. This is now for a continuous wave LiDAR, but I do believe for a wind cube, if you had a fixed wind cube on the platform, it would have looked very similarly. Now the interesting part comes when we add motion to it. It looks like this. So this is exactly what Julian also described. We have a motion impact, which you can see here in two things, basically as a spread of the measurements. Points are spread more, but we also have an obvious offset in the left plot here. And this is before correction. On the right side, you see the same after correction. So we apply a motion compensation based on motion measurements to this. Purely geometrically, so it's basically a coordinate transformation, no machine learning. And you do see, if you compare these three, we have a good improvement by this. So we are able to correct for these motion impacts. But you also see it doesn't look as good. So there is still some motion left. It's not a perfect correction, but it's definitely a good mitigation of the main effects. This is for the wind cube, and I should also mention that this is already, we have learned before that we should reduce the sampling rate, so increase the sampling frequency to hopefully basically have these less motion impacts during accumulation time. And this is already the result for the fast product we can get from Vaisala. One more step. We can, of course, so normally the industry likes looking at these correlation plots, but this is normally not what we put into the application. So when you apply TI, you apply it in a different way, and you also should assess it in a different way. And this is why we basically have to work with some metrics. And one of these metrics that was suggested in the industry and also in standard is the mean bias error. There's also some publications from other floating LiDAR providers suggesting some acceptance thresholds. That's what you see here as a green band for this specific parameter. And this gives you a basis to say, well, what we did in terms of compensation is good enough or maybe not good enough. In this case, you see, we show the metrics, so the mean bias error for different wind speeds for the raw and the compensated wind cube data. So that's in red here. We also showed for the continuous wave LiDAR, which was tested at the same time. And what you do see is that not just only the scatter plots look nicer after the compensation, we also reach for most of the wind speed ranges a very good agreement with this acceptance thresholds that were defined. So you could say the job was done well, or the target was achieved in that case. There is, because we have talked about metrics before, also for these types of metrics, where it's about the assessment of the accuracy of the parameters we are looking at. There's not a 100% consensus. So here you actually see different options of metrics that could be evaluated. You see the mean bias error again here, but there are also recommendations or recommended practices from DMV, for example, to look instead at the relative mean bias error. You can also look at root mean square values or relative root mean square error, as it is suggested by DNV. You can look at something like a representative TI error. Please look into the publication for the exact formula. And also here we have a suggestion or proposal for an acceptance threshold, but it's always the same thing basically. So it is very important for the industry to align on this and say, this is what we want to study. And also for NEMO to make the link here, this is in the end what we want to assess and evaluate for all the tools we are looking at. This is only for the floating LiDAR here, but we will do exactly the same assessment for the scanning LiDAR solution we are looking at, but also for the model solutions. So some more alignment is needed here, but of course it's also an approach just to calculate all of them and assess them together as we did it for this study. So what's next? This is just kind of preview what we have already been working on, but I also mentioned we have scanning lidar work to do. We have the more modeling work and the calibration with the LAS. We have gusts and extreme winds to study in more detail. And a lot of this we actually want to cover in a demonstration campaign that was also mentioned by Tanguy, which we just started today, actually, in Northumberland, UK. So we have this setup here. See the map where we are, north of England. We have two sites that are part of the C-Test site. C-Test is for Center for the Testing of Environmental Sciences Technology, run by Oldbaum for some time now. And what we have in the focus of this is a MetMouse. So MetMouse is our true reference. And we have two locations where we run the scanning lidars. They are separate, and this is unique for this site, from the MetMouse about 6 and 7 kilometers. So that is really a real-world test case under offshore conditions, in particular if we have the offshore winds impacting all of this. And we also have profilers on the MetMouse sitting. We have, as you can see here, in particular, some additional meteorologic or atmospheric measurement equipment. And we also have, luckily at the same test, same period, our floating lidar measuring close to the measurement mast. Normally, this measurement mast was used to test floating lidars, as some of you may know, and now we set up also the scanning lidar test environment. This is from today. So we have in total, by the end of next month, we will have 3 scanning lidars supporting us in this campaign, all from Vaisala, and first of them was just commissioned today, as you can see on this picture. That's pretty new. And with this, we will do this measurement campaign for 3 to 4 months, I should add, and generate a lot of data, which we hopefully can then work on in the next 18 months and present the results in the next webinar, I suggest. With this, I come to my summary and outlook. For you to keep in mind, well, NEMO is really, for us, it's not just important to do a scientific technical project. It's also about this collaboration between a German and a French research institutions, and do this in the context of offshore wind, because we believe, well, we are in 2 very different markets, but we have very ambitious offshore wind plans in both Germany and France. And we also know from a technical point that the turbulence measurements do have a role in this. So we know the wind resource is, of course, a key aspect, but sighting conditions, including TI, are in the settings we have more and more important, both for wind turbine and wind farm designs when looking at loads. Also for example, the floating wind projects that are targeted in the French market, but also when you look actually at the German expansion plans, where we really go into dense clusters, we need to study wakes and cluster effects in much more detail, and we know that understanding of TI in connection with stability conditions and similar things is really paramount, and this we are trying to support here with the project. The summary, the key R&D questions, particularly for NEMO, is then, so when we know we need TI information, where do we get the data from? Modeling, measurements, what kind of measurements, what kind of models, what kind of resolutions. But another question is actually which metrics do we apply to this? And then in the end, when we look deeper into gusts and extreme winds, what are the further procedures we can apply here? What kind of statistics do we assume? What kind of assumptions? And where does something like machine learning or artificial intelligence more generally may help? And to what extent is this also acceptable for the industry? These are all the questions we are covering in NEMO in the end to support what happens in our markets in terms of offshore wind, and have this as a final objective and goal. This is the very last slide. This is not the last time you can discuss this with us. As I said, we have 18 more months to work on, but we also have a bit sooner in time, in June, at the West 25 conference, a webinar, not a webinar, a mini symposium on this topic. This is coordinated together with my colleague Hanya and also Maxime from France Energie Marine. And we have 2 sessions on the topic of the projects, and would be very happy to see as many of you there, listen to the presentations and discuss the topic further.